Rum is too sweet for me. That is a response I got when I put out a post in a local community group asking about the potential who would be interested if I was to start doing rum tasting nights locally. Now, I immediately wanted to jump back and go, no, it's not. But it really got me thinking, why do people naturally assume rum is really sweet? Is it because people's previous experiences have been the sweet and spiced rums and not the real stuff? Or is it simply because rum is made from sugar and people naturally assume it's going to be sweeter? Now, to be honest, I actually think it's a bit of both. I know a previous video that I did where I talked about the amount of sugar that could be added to rums. That kind of shocked a lot of people. A lot of people didn't expect that. But let's be brutally honest, no spirit category is exempt from that. Gins have sugar added to them. Vodka has sugar added to them. Rums, whiskies, tequila has sugar added to them. No spirit category is exempt from having sugar added to it. But that's really sort of talking about the flavoured stuff, whether it's flavoured gins, flavoured tequilas, flavoured whiskies now, you know, Jim Beam, and they've got all their kind of flavoured whiskey as well, Jack Daniels. So that is, yes, primarily talking about flavoured spirits. But then you have also got the fact that some rum brands do actually add sugar to their plain, normal, proper rums. Some brands are very open and honest about this, like take Plantation, for example. Plantation will have it written on their bottles. It's called dosage. Plantation will have it written on their bottles exactly how much sugar they've added to their rums. Other brands choose to keep that completely under the radar and never disclose how much sugar is added. So yes, if you compare some rums to, for instance, a gin, for example, a London Dry Gin, London Dry Gin, of course, has got no sugar added to it, whereas some of these rums may have done. But then, you know, a lot of rums really don't have sugar added to them. Take anything coming out of Jamaica and most Barbados rums as well, you know, there's no sugar added to these at all. But then I think a lot of people do naturally assume rum is sweeter purely because the base ingredient, the base raw material of rum is sugarcane, which sugarcane is obviously sweet. And I know that's a big thought process of a lot of people. They naturally do assume rum is sweeter because it comes from sugarcane. But the bit they miss is that every spirit category has sugar involved in the production of that spirit. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about gin, tequila, whiskey, vodka, rum. It doesn't matter because the vital part of distillation is the fermentation. Fermentation is converting those raw materials, the starchiness of those raw materials, into a sugar. And that's not even mentioning brandy, which base raw material is grapes and naturally sweet fruit. So when it comes to the distillation and the production of all spirit categories, they are all on a completely level playing field when it comes to sugar levels. Now, of course, after distillation, after production of that spirit, whatever you're making, yes, it all depends on what the brand chooses to do. As I say, there are laws and regulations around quite a lot. Whiskey, for instance, you can't add sugar after it. If you do, it ceases to become a whiskey in that sense. Tequila is the same. London Dry Gin, you know, there's no sugar in that. But if it doesn't say the word London Dry Gin and it's flavoured, the chances are there's quite a bit of sugar added to that final product. So I think that a lot of the rum is too sweet is simply people's natural perceptions of it. It is spiced rum. People look at spiced rum. People maybe look at Diplomatico, Don Papa, those kind of rums that are a lot sweeter than other rums. But we do, when we're kind of sipping these, I'm going back to these, the Foursquare, the Dawley's 12-year-old and the Jamaican Appleton 12-year-old. As I said, there is zero sugar added to this after production, nothing. And yet when it comes to taste, yes, you have to admit these are sweeter in taste than your average kind of gin. So where does that sweetness actually come from? Well, it will simply be down to the distilling and the aging process, the craft of that distiller and blender. The barrels they use to age the rums will impart different characteristics. I mean, just take a sherry cask finished rum, for example. You're obviously going to get sweeter sherry notes into that rum than you are a rum that hasn't been aged. It's just been aged in oak barrels, for example, bourbon barrels. But again, it doesn't mean to say there's sugar added to them. It's just that natural flavours from the sherry that come out into a rum. But then you've also got the tropical climate as well. The climate plays a huge role in the rum. All of those things combined will give that end product, the end rum, a much sweeter feel and taste than a lot of your average spirits. But please don't mistake a sweeter rum for being sweetened They're two completely different things. Just because something is sweeter in taste, it doesn't automatically mean it is sweetened. Now, I know that's going to pose one final big question to a lot of people. How can you tell if a rum is sweetened? Now, I'm sorry I haven't got better news for you, but the fact is, when you really start, and even probably a year into your rum journey, you probably won't be able to tell the difference between a sweetened rum and just a naturally kind of sweet rum. As I say, some brands are very open and honest about the amount of sugar that they do add into them. Other brands aren't so open and honest about it. But there are also some cracking websites out there that have done the research, and the Rum X app, I'll link to that in the description below, that I kind of use. People have kind of done the test and found out exactly how much sugar is in a rum. But until you go down your rum journey, the chances are you're not going to be able to pick out the difference. Now, openly and honestly, I've been drinking rum most of my adult life, a good 20 plus years now. I absolutely love my rum, but as a proper out and out rum journey, at the time of shooting, I've really only been on that journey properly for about 8 months or so, and I'm still way off telling a rum that has been sweetened to a rum that is naturally sweet. Yes, I can pick it in certain rums. Certain rums it's really easy to tell, but it's only because I've got that tiny bit of experience now. But then in a lot of rums, I just won't have a clue. I will naturally think, oh, that's got a bit of sugar added to it. I mean, openly and honestly, it still absolutely amazes me that the 12-year-old Appleton and the 8-year-old, to be fair, but it still amazes me that there's absolutely no sugar added to these. But there is one slight clue that I'm kind of picking up on more and more these days, and that's if a brand uses the word premium or smooth. That for me is starting to become a very big giveaway, because if they are kind of marketing those kind of things and then you taste it and you've got no kind of woody, oaky notes, no peppery spice, no fun sort of tropical fruit element coming through, you've just got this rounded smoothness, it would kind of mean that, do you know what? A fair amount of sugar has been added to this to kind of take away those characteristics. Now, to clarify, that's not me slagging them off at all. I enjoy something like Diplomatico as much as the next person, and Diplo has got a huge amount of sugar added to it. I love the plantation stuff, and the plantation stuff has got quite a healthy amount of sugar added compared to like the Dawleys and the Appletons. There is nothing wrong in that, in my kind of it. But the point is, I'm just trying to clarify the difference between sweet tasting rums and sweetened rums. Now, if you're watching this and thinking how much sugar is actually added to some rums and that, then go and watch this video, because that might help you out quite a bit.